Hopefully, having watched this video, you'll feel a little bit more confident in using the machine. You'll understand the machine a little bit more. What's a sewing machine? Well, here I've got two examples of sewing machines that I have that I regularly use with my beginners. So how a machine works is it uses the top thread that's here with a bottom thread that's hidden inside there, and on this machine is hidden inside there. But essentially the thread comes up from the bottom and you have one thread that comes up from the top. Now there is a thread here on this machine, it's lying down so it's horizontal, and on this machine it stood up so it's vertical. So that's the first two differences that you can see on this machine. And on these machines you can also see the bobbin. The bobbin is hidden in the front underneath here. So this is called a front loading machine. And in this machine the bobbin is hidden, it's a bit tricky, on the top there. So this is called a top loading machine. Now you can see here I have a pedal. Now that pedal doesn't usually sit on the table, that usually sits on the floor, and that's controlled by your feet. So think about driving a car. So if I lay fabric in the machine and press on the pedal, you can see stitches on the front and you can see stitches on the back. Those stitches are made by the bobbin and those are made by the spindle at the top. The very first thing I always point out to everybody is the hand wheel. So we'll turn the hand wheel only towards us. See what you can see moving. Now the first thing that everybody spots is the needle. You can see the needle going up and down, and in there you can see the thread take up lever. I call it a hook. Have a look here and you can see the feed dogs going. Now what happens is, just watch the motion of those feed dogs. When I turn, the feed dogs go back, and when they've reached all the way back they go down underneath the plate, and then they lift up, they lift that fabric up and they shift all the way back again. So what's happened is they've lifted your fabric up, lifted it up and pushed it back. So you don't need to pull or push or stretch your fabric when you're sewing, because the feed dogs do that for you. Let me show you how you place your foot back. Can you see that round hook? That's like a clamp. And there is a bar on the foot. Can you see that bar there? That bar will be caught by that clamp. So I need to make sure I place that in the right place underneath there. And then I place the presser foot down, and then when I lift it up, it's clamped my foot. So that's how we hook it back on. Foot comes off. But on this machine, there's a lever on the back. Some have a button. They all work differently. But if I squeeze that lever there, it sort of lets go and releases. But I can put that foot back in exactly the same I can place it exactly the same way by just putting that lever down and clamping it. Did you hear that click? So these are called your standard zigzag foot. We've got an oval rather than a hole. Is when we do a zigzag, the needle will jump from left to right. So the job of this hook is to pull thread from the spool up there. And you'll see as that bobs up and down, it will pull a big burst of thread off there. When we come to the end of our stitching, we need to make sure that hook's back at the top. So we turn the hand wheel only towards us, and then we can release the fabric. So this foot goes up and down using a lever that I have in my right hand. So let me show you from behind. The lever is usually hiding sort of towards the back. This bit here is your sewing bed, but this bit is called the throat. Now it's called a presser foot because it presses on your fabric. And do you remember I told you about those feed dogs? it presses on those on the feed dogs, that fabric goes down so that the feed dogs can lift it and push it back, lift it and push it back, and then keep going on with it like that. If I don't put the presser foot down, presser foot's up, the fabric goes nowhere. Let me put it back down. So the presser foot's really important part of our sewing machine. So make sure my hook was up to the top, and then I can release. Now, can you see that nest I've created there? Let me get rid of all the threads that we've got. That nest I created, and that nest was for two reasons. One, didn't push my thread to the back. So make sure you push your thread to the back every time you start sewing. And I always say, send it back to northwest. Not all the way to the back behind the needle or the foot, but actually northwest to the corner of your machine. And that nest was also because I forgot to put a presser foot down. But that's okay, you can unpick that and redo it. So how do you unpick? Well, you need to grab something like this. This has got a sharp blade right inside there. So that red blob is protecting the end there, so that when you slide it in between fabrics, it doesn't tear your fabric. But that sharp blade there will cut your thread, and it's pointy there so that you can get under your stitches. And the best way is not by holding your fabric up in the air, but actually laying your fabric on the table and push away. And then just lift. You see how I'm not doing it towards a sharp blade this time. I did the first one. And then usually what you can do when you've done a few is you can probably pull the rest out like that. And then work on the other side, because that will all come undone in one go. Oh, apart from that nest that I created at the top there. Let's see if it comes out if I pull again a little bit. There we go. Like that. But see the mess it leaves behind. So be very careful when you sew. I try to say to people 3, 4 or 5 stitches is plenty. You don't need to do any more than that. So that was about 4. I don't need to worry about getting the hook back to the top because I'm in the middle of a row of stitches. So then I press this down. Now you've got to keep it pressed down. Can you see when I let go? There's a spring inside there that lifts it back up. So you've got to keep that pressed down, hold onto your fabric, and then use the pedal. So did you see how the machine went back? And I went back 3 stitches. So I need to do one more, like that. And then I finish that row of stitches. When I get to the end, lock those stitches. So press that button down. Let's do 3 or 4 or 5 stitches back. And then doesn't matter how many you do, make sure you come all the way forward again. And then hook to the top. It's there. Press the foot up. And then we can release our fabric. Now, if you don't have scissors to hand, there's a special part on your machine. That's a thread cutter. Not all machines have it, but this one does. And what you do is it's got a blade inside in there. So it's a knife and it's quite sharp so that when you scoop your fabric round and pull down, it will cut your threads for you. So have a look at those lock stitches. Can you see? It's darker there because I've got 3 stitches there when I went back and then went over them again. And that's them locked at the top again. So if you've got this machine, you've got, let's have a look, 14 kinds of stitches. And on this machine, we've got a few more. So those stitches, quite a lot of those stitches have uses. So they are called utility stitches. You know, utility is like your gas, your electricity, your water. We call those utilities. Those are the things we need. So like your straight stitch, your zigzag. Then we have a dotted zigzag. We call that tricot or a 3-step. Then we've got different ones. These catch a little bit of the fabric when you hem, so they're called hemming stitches. And then there's all sorts of different ones which are decorative stitches. A lot of people call them embroidery stitches. They're not embroidery. We call them decorative stitches. And then a really good one is this one. That's your buttonhole stitch. So that will create a buttonhole for you. But on this machine, your buttonhole is on number 1, but you've got to go to 3 different parts. So you have to do the top bit of your button, then you go to B, and it does the zigzag on one side, go back to C, and it does the bar tack at the top, the other way, and then D, the zigzag on the other side, on the right hand side. I like this one because I can put the fabric in the machine, leave it on there, and it will work it out for me. On this one, the different decorative stitches here mixed with the utility stitches will give you all sorts of different designs. But the advantage on this machine is you can change the length of your stitches. So you can have some zigzags that are longer, but you can also change the width. So you can have them wider as well. So you can have narrow zigzags, wide zigzags, long zigzags, short zigzags. So you've got also one other thing both these machines have is a dial called the tension. Now it's called the tension on this machine, but it doesn't have a name on this machine. It doesn't tell you on the machine that that's the tension, but they usually, can you see how they're both on similar line numbers? So this one, they go, all the numbers are up to 9, and then you've got a 0. So the lower the number you go, the looser the stitches will be. And the higher the number you go, the tighter the stitches will be. Now you generally, can you see how there's a bar between 3, 4 and 5? When you run this machine, it will run best when it's either 3, 4 or 5. So I like to leave mine just as the manufacturer says, so just as they've left it. So don't play with that number, just leave it as it is. If you do, you'll find loose stitches, very tight stitches, so it can make it very difficult for you. So try and remember to leave that in the setting the machine company have suggested. So let's have a look on this one. So here again, can you see there's no line between the numbers? There it is, 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. And there you go. Can you see the difference? So let's leave it on the middle one there. And that's what the company say. This machine will work best when that tension is on 4. So I'm going to work on a stitch length of 3, and on that machine I like to work on 10. And the reason is they have nice long stitches that I can work with, and if I need to unpick them, I can unpick them easily. Now, if you want to thread this machine up, I have done another video for you to watch. I think that's it for the moment. I think I've given you lots to think about, lots to do.